Okay, well, everybody, welcome to the first post-game parlay. I don't know exactly what we're going to call this thing, but I thought we'd start with that. John Bonus of TwinsDaily.com with me. Seth Stos of Twins Daily. Say hi, Seth.
Good morning, everybody.
And Nick Nelson of Twins Daily. Gentlemen, what are we all drinking? I've got a Finnegan's Cluster Truck here today.
I'm opening up a Surly Stunner here. Shout out to Randball Stew.
Nicely, John.
It's a tropical ale. It's pretty tasty, and I'm having it in a 2016 Winter Meltdown glass, a classic collector's item.
I've got the 2018. Seth?
Y'all will be impressed. I've got if we're looking for a sponsor, the Our Family Spring Water. Did sprinkle in a little bit of raspberry lemonade as well into it, so it's a little risque for me.
Renegade.
Pretty going Seth's going mixologist on the bit. I like that.
Oh, yeah. Mixing my waters,
All right. The Twins fall 4-3 to the Cubs tonight in their final exhibition game before the 2020 season begins. I think the only real offensive performance of note was Rosario going 2 for 3. He was the only person who had multiple hits on the team. In fact, the bats looked kind of lifeless. We did see Homer Bailey start this game. He'll be the number 4 starter. Well, they haven't announced if he's the number 4 and number 5 starter for the rotation yet, but we kind of presume he'll be the number 4 starter for the rotation. He got knocked around, gave up 2 home runs in the first inning, another one in the third inning. Then we saw Clippard, Whistler, Littell, Thielbar, and Alcala make appearances to round out the game. Okay. I guess I'll start with the first take of the game. Bats looked a little bit lifeless. I've been worried about that the whole spring training. I'm actually worried about it a little bit across Major League Baseball, but I'm especially worried about it for my Twins. It occurred to me, I did take a look at what the situation had been. The Cubs have already played 2 exhibition games before this. They played both Saturday and Sunday against the White Sox. The White Sox also, that means, of course, the White Sox, who the Twins play Friday, also had exhibition games on Saturday and Sunday, and they had another exhibition game tonight, which is Milwaukee. So they're coming in with three exhibition games underneath their belt. I'm wondering if the Twins should have tried to play more exhibition games prior to the beginning of the season. The season starts out with a 9-game stretch that includes 3 versus the White Sox right off the beginning of the season, then 1 day off, then 2 games versus the Cardinals, flowing right into a 4-game series versus Cleveland, which is the start of a 16 straight game series that they have. So it's, by the time they get through 9 games, they'll have faced the White Sox 3 times, Cleveland 4 times, and by the way, those teams face each other in between, so that I think we're going to have a sense after 9 or 10 games just which way the AL Central is going and who's going to be the team to catch. And I'm a little worried that this team might come out of the gates a little bit quiet, especially when you take a look at some of the nagging sort of things they've got hanging on. We did not see Byron Buxton start tonight. Miguel Sano, came in camp late because of COVID. He didn't do particularly well tonight offensively, although he made a nice defensive play. I don't know. What do you guys think? Are anybody besides me just a little concerned that the bats, which is supposed to be the strength of this team, might be off to a slow start this year?
No, I think it's a legit concern. And to your point, they're going to be tested right out of the gates going into Guaranteed Rate Field, playing the White Sox, a White Sox team that just the other day played against the same Cubs team that shut down the Twins pretty much tonight and torched Yu Darvish. I mean, it's a legitimate lineup, pretty good 1 through 9. So the Twins, we're probably not going to see I don't think we're going to see Homer Bailey in that series, but obviously they're going to need to pitch a lot better and get the bats going. I'm not too worried about the bats. It seems like they've been taking pretty good at bats throughout the spring. Tonight maybe a little bit of an outlier. I mean, Lester definitely had him out of sorts. But I guess I'm not too concerned on the offensive side. I just, they're gonna be tested by the White Sox. I don't doubt that.
I'm not saying I'm panicking, but I will say this. In addition to facing that White Sox lineup, they're also going to be facing Giolito and Keuchel as well. Those bats are going to have to. And Giolito's no joke. He struck out. I mean, everybody's I'm kind of surprised that people are wondering whether or not Giolito is for real. I get that he wasn't particularly good before last year. He struck out 12 guys per 9 innings last year. Like, he's got a fair amount of room to regress, and he's still going to be a pretty good pitcher. Keuchel is also, certainly has the track record. I think there's some question about whether he still has the same stuff. I don't know. How about you, Seth? What do you think about any concerns that the bats might come out of the gates a little slow?
I mean, anything can happen in a 3-game series or any short period. And even Mike Bell this afternoon made the comment that they kind of just know that the bats are behind the arms at this point of the season, and they expect that. But I would put the Twins pitching staff up with anyone as well. Maybe not as much high end, but I think other teams are going to have to hit them too. So, I'm not real concerned. At the end of the day, a lot of them are veterans, and a lot of them have been through a lot of different things, a lot of different seasons. At the same time, you mentioned Giolito. I mean, he's elite. I put up a poll on Twitter the other day asking who the best AL Central pitcher was. I mean, it's Giolito, it's Bieber, it's Clevenger. These are 3 really, really good pitchers. Barrios kind of matches in with them, probably. They're going to see some good ones. And tonight they saw Lester, and he's very similar to Keuchel. Tops out at about 90, but hits his spots, mixes it up. Good pitching beats good hitting, right? That's what we keep hearing all the time. And I think the AL Central is better than a lot of people give credit to, other than, of course, Detroit and Kansas City. But I mean, top 3 are going to be pretty good.
One thing that I will note is that the Cubs, who the Twins play only 3 times in the regular season in September, are the only team on their schedule in the regular season that was in the top half of the major leagues in runs scored last year. So this is about as good of an offense as the Twins might see this year. Obviously, the White Sox have upgraded a lot, but the Cubs are pretty stacked even without Chris Bryant in the lineup, and they gave him a tough time.
The other thing I'd mention as far as the exhibition schedule, they were only allowed to play up to 3 exhibitions, and I believe the White Sox and Cubs played, and they're both in Chicago, which made it a lot easier than, maybe the Twins would have tried to play Milwaukee somewhere, but they kind of made the best out of it. And frankly, I think for their pitchers to get to pitch against these guys was a great test. So I think it's a tough season. It's going to be a weird season in a lot of ways, and I think you just kind of had to do what you had to do. But I think they'll be fine. I mean, again, they're veteran hitters who have been good for a long time.
What did you guys take away from the game?
I think I saw Josh Betts mention this in the comment section or the chat section here, but the thing that really struck me was Miguel Sano's defense at first base. I think as far as question marks on this team, that's one of the big unknowns, and he looked comfortable. I think, right. A lot of we saw the play where he ranged damn near all the way to second base and made that nice little turn and pivot and throw to Dotel there. But
he's got the arm for that too. Like he's got to really wing that ball there to get that there in time. It was that showing that range and that arm looked like a third baseman playing first base.
Yeah, I thought the best play to me was that play late in the game, too, where he backhand scooped that Donaldson low throw. I mean, it just looked easy for him. It looked natural. And, you look at him, and the guy looks like a first baseman. He looks so much more natural at first base than he did at third with his size.
I just also think that he's so much better an athlete than people give him credit for because he is so big.
Yeah.
The play where he ranged way to his right was one thing. I mean, that, again, showed his athleticism, showed his arm, showed a lot of things that we hopefully won't see a ton of during the season. The more important play is the one Nick mentioned, and that's being able to scoop the low throws because, I think we feel pretty good about Josh Donaldson, but I don't know if we all are real confident in the arm of Jorge Polanco. And frankly, there's been arise questions in terms of his ability to throw and play second base his whole career. So, going back to the minor leagues. So to me, the scooping looked very natural, as Nick said, and that's going to be more important over the course of the year.
He also had the thing about that play to second base is it occurred to me he probably isn't supposed to field that ball. You know what I mean? That ball is probably supposed to go to the second baseman. He's supposed to let that one go and get to first base. It was probably a mistake because he hasn't played much first base. His natural reaction is to go get a ball at third base. You go get the ball, right?
That's true. I also wonder the Twins shift as much as anyone in the league. So they're probably in a play like that may make them more willing to move Arise way over, move Polanco way over. Donaldson fits into that, what he's able to do as well. But, again, I think with Sano, I think we still have to be patient. Blocking balls, scooping balls is one thing. I think what's going to happen is there's some plays that you just can't practice. You can't replicate. They just have to happen in a game, and he's going to have to experience them. And there's going to be times where we just shake our heads, but he has to go through them.
Yeah, that's the kind of play at second base that I thought he would struggle with because he'd make the wrong call, right? And he did make the wrong call, but he recovered because he's an athlete and he's got the arm. The other one I wondered about that I'll give you help is the kind of sweep tag he did when he had to come off the base. That is the sort of thing that I would be more. It would feel more like he'd be more likely to screw up. You know what I mean? Like that's the sort of thing that's a judgment call that you've got to make that call on the fly in the moment, and you probably need to play a couple hundred times at first base to feel confident that you're going to make the right call all the time. And so I was happy to see that.
At the same time, I think that speaks to his athleticism. I think he's a smart ball player, and he understands what he needs to do. He's watched Mauer. He's worked at first base with Joe Mauer in the past. I think Justin Morneau spent a lot of time with him during spring. So these are things that he's at least heard of and been through. And again, I think his athleticism will help him out in that case.
How about you, Seth? What did you know? What did you bring? What caught your eye in the game?
So, I've got a few. I've got about 4 or 5 different things, but I'll jump to this one right away. I mean, you know me, I'm trying to play, figuring things out for Friday already.
Right.
Trying to look on the bench, and they didn't show a lot of images of the bench. I wanted to see who was there in terms of those guys that were wondering.
Have they announced who made the trip? Because I heard it was going to be 32 guys going there, and I haven't heard who it was.
Well, they should have 33. You should have the 30 active players, have the 3 taxi squad. And, I know Aaron Wolfson has reported that Tomas Talise made the trip, and he'd be your third catcher. Tonight we saw Alcala and Caleb Thielbar, who are both candidates for last roster spot in terms of the bullpen. They're also candidates to be taxi squad guys. We still haven't heard about Corey Guerin, the veteran reliever with about 10, 12 years of major league experience. He should have an opt-out here, and I haven't heard anything about if he's made the team or if he's been released or if he's accepted a practice squad type of situation. We've wondered with Williams Astudillo out, is Travis Blankenhorn and his versatility a possibility as that 30th man early in the year? I've also heard a lot of people say Aaron Whitefield is a guy who could make this team just as a 10th inning pinch runner type of a player. So
there were rumors from the beat writers that he was there today. So if he's in Chicago, I think it's a pretty good bet he's on the roster, because you got to think Talise is the taxi squad guy and probably a couple pitchers, right?
Yeah, and honestly, he's probably a little bit of insurance for Buxton if Buxton just isn't able to go and they think they need to put him on the 10-day DL, which would be unfortunate, or IL, I'm sorry. So, I mean, there's a lot of just those things that, being me, I kind of look at. And I didn't think they showed a lot of dugout views, so I wasn't able to snoop too much. But Thielbar and Alcala certainly made me think about that.
Yeah, to your point, Seth, Rich in the chat here says that it was mentioned that Buxton was back in Minneapolis right now and not with the team. So that would certainly enforce your point about Aaron Whitefield.
And that might explain why 32 traveled instead of 33.
I mean, if Buxton doesn't make the roster, then Whitefield's on it. But otherwise, I don't see that Whitefield Whitfield makes it on there. I've got 15 guys, and I think that 15th is probably Blankenhorn. But, I mean, if Buxton can't go, then, and they think he's not going to be able to go for another week, they just decide because I think the way it works, tell me if I'm wrong on this. You tell me if you understand it differently. It would be it's a 10-day IL, but you can put them on and backdate it, quote unquote, 3 games, even though there weren't 3 games, right? So that would mean that they could come off after the second game versus Cleveland. So a week from Saturday. Is that the way everybody else understands it?
Yeah, it's a day injured list.
Yeah, that's right. So it'd have to be after the, let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so after the first game versus Cleveland, they could bring him back on the roster.
So the clock starts ticking tomorrow, since that's technically the start of the schedule. Is that correct? Right? I mean, it's not the start of the Twins schedule, but it's the start of the Major League schedule, right?
But you can backdate it from.
Well,
that's a good question. I don't know if you can backdate it from Thursday since there are games.
Well, generally during a regular season, you can backdate at three spring training games, essentially, right? Mm. But there aren't 3 spring training games for the Twins. There's just one. So I don't really know exactly how far out that goes. And I'll tell you another reason why I'm wondering about that is Odorizzi. You know, if they just going to skip Odorizzi's start, right, and he's not going to actually make a start the first time around, well, then you've got the 3 starters that were announced today or yesterday, right? Barrios, Hill, Maeda versus the White Sox. Then you've got an off day. That's where Odorizzi would go, right? Then you've got Homer Bailey at the first start versus the Cardinals. Then you can go back to Barrios, Hill, Maeda. That takes care of the first game versus the Cardinals and the next 2 games versus Cleveland. Well, now you don't need Odorizzi for the first. What is that? That's the first 7 games, first 8 days. Right.
And our friend TCNL just mentioned in the chat that Odo was just announced to be on the IL. So
perfect. All right. Well, thank you.
Breaking a lot of news here, thanks to you folks.
I should have gone to that press conference. Huh?
I was going to say that is the danger of doing this immediately afterwards, is we're not hearing the Rockaball Deli thing. Okay, so that opens up a spot right on the 30-man that we thought was going to be taken care of. So I presume, and I wonder if I presume that means they would want to carry another long reliever. To me, does that mean Thorpe makes it? We've got Dobnik, Smeltzer, and Thorpe in the bullpen.
Well, and Doogie did point out that Thorpe did make the trip as well. So I think all 3 of them are very likely, especially now that we know that Odorizzi is out.
Okay, so that means you've got the 4 starters. You got the 4 starters, and you got those 3, right? You've got the 7 relievers that pretty much everybody has on there. So that's 14 of the 15 pitchers. The other 7 relievers being Rogers, May, Duffy, Romo, Littell, Clippard, and Whistler, right? That leaves me 1 spot if I'm only taking 15 pitchers. I would presume Stashik? Or is that where they carry a 16th position player? Which would
if Stashik's not a given, I would be shocked.
Okay, well then Stashik's already in there. Okay, well then that's 15. That's 15 pitchers.
Which maybe negates the need to bring another long reliever. I mean, I guess Dobnik or Smeltzer will be moving into the rotation, at least temporarily. But, I mean, they got a lot of pitchers to get them through games. So,
well, I'm not sure they is moving the rotation, right? They might just skip Odorizzi the first time around and then catch him on the second time around. He ends up taking the 8th game of the year or something because they've got that off.
Could be.
I don't know. We'll see.
So there you go.
Okay. I should mention that we can take questions. And, in fact, we can also, if you want to ask a question live, I can unmute the attendees. I think I need you to raise your hand in the chat session. As to how you go raising your hand, I don't fully know how attendees go and do that.
There's a raise hand button on the interface. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. So if you would like to raise your hand, if you'd like to ask a question, or if you have a question that you want to put into the question and answer area, we'll be happy to take those too. In the meantime,
I think someone should do it just to test your ability to do that while talking, chewing gum and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, that's what somebody should do. Let me see if I'll give another piece of news broke today. I like your reaction. Brian Dozier, old friend Brian Dozier, ended up signing with the New York Mets, I believe. I presume he's got a spot on the roster, or is he going to be somebody that they're eventually calling? Have we heard anything about that? What do we think about that?
I mean, it seems like, do the Mets have an obvious candidate for DH? I don't know. I assume they already have a second baseman locked in, but, I kind of was surprised to see Dozier get let go by the Padres, and surprised that, he seems like the kind of guy that an NL team could just pick up and throw into that DH spot against lefties, at least.
Okay. The only other thing, Seth, you're on mute. There, now you're off mute. There you go.
The only thing I was going to add is it is a minor league deal, so they might be able to get him some simulated game type of experience over the couple of weeks and see where it's at. see how they're doing, that kind of thing. Like Nick, I was surprised that San Diego didn't keep him. I think their infield has some questions, but San Diego chose to go with like their 14 or 15 best prospects and didn't do like the Twins did with a bunch of veteran types. So that's I think what hurt Dozier. Like you said, the DH in the National League now, I think that presents an option for him.
Yeah, so Dozier was not on the 60-man group, I don't think, for San Diego. So does that mean that he hasn't really had an opportunity to ramp up at all with the team?
Yeah. I believe that to be true. Yeah, because you couldn't even, I don't think, get into the intake process and all of that.
Okay. The other, I still don't see. Let's see. We've got the question saying if Odo doesn't get in, do you think Smeltzer maybe gets mixed in? I think we kind of already talked about that a little bit. We also talked about Miguel Sano at first base. Have we discussed the outfield picture? I'm assuming no Buxton tonight means 1 to 5 games he's out for. I don't know if that's a safe assumption or not. I would think they would want him out there in the exhibition game if they were thinking he was going to be starting on opening day. I don't know if that means he's, it could be that but now we hear that he's coming to Chicago. Maybe that's just to hang out with the team. I don't think you would want to do that in the era of coronavirus. So I'm wondering, do we see him Monday or Friday or Saturday? They also, by the way, have a night game Friday and an early day game on Saturday. So they might want as many people available as they can get. Otherwise, they could give him the Chicago White Sox series off and he could come back Tuesday versus the Cardinals. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Well, per TCNL, via Dan Hayes, our guy Disco Dan, Buxton had a full day of work in St. Paul today, running and taking live swings. Sounds like it went well. Twins could very well have him in time for the weekend series versus the White Sox. I mean, it didn't seem like there was much indication that they thought he would miss more than a game or two, maybe. I mean, but he didn't play in any of these intra-squads, so it's pretty tough to say. I mean, and Buxton is not a guy you want to rush. We've all seen what happens when you rush him back with a foot injury. And certainly, a guy that needs to build up a little bit to be effective at the plate. So.
Yeah, I would also look to tonight's lineup. Rosario was in left. Kepler was in center. Gonzalez was in right. They also have Cave and Wade on the roster. And as we talked about before, Whitefield may or may not be there and may or may not be an option. So even if they do, like we said earlier, they have 32 that traveled, they can have 33. He probably comes. And I would think they would prefer not to put him on the injured list. You just would rather have him in the game. The only way to get reps is to get reps. So I know that sounds obvious, but the only way to get him timing, and same thing with Sano, is you just got to keep playing him. And it's tough, and it's part of what's weird about this short season. But if those are your key guys, you got to just go with them. But, again, with Buxton, you just got to make sure he's right first. You don't want to put him in a position where he could get hurt worse and then be out longer.
Let me ask you guys about this one. So here was the lineup tonight versus left-hander John Lester. Started out with Garver, Donaldson batting second, Cruz batting third, then Polanco batting cleanup, Sano, the right-hander, going back to the Sano is the right-hander, then the left-hander Eddie Rosario following him, then Marwin Gonzalez batting seventh. Now, Marwin Gonzalez was only there because Buxton wasn't, so I'm presuming some of this is where things would change, but that 1 through 6, which, by the way, does not include Kepler anywhere to be found, even though he hit left-handers better than right-handers. What do we think that is going to be what Rocco Baldelli is going to want to do versus left-handed pitching during the regular season? And what do you think of it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about between Garver, Donaldson's, Cruz, and Sano. I think I saw a stat today that all 4 of them were in the top 6 in exit velocity against left-handed pitching. So them all up there. And yeah, Kepler had a better batting average against lefties, but most of his power came against righties. So I understand that. It was weird to see him batting 8th though. Obviously he'll bat first, I think, against right-handers. I was surprised too that Arise was out of the lineup. He was kind of dinged the other day. which made sense at the beginning when Adrianza started. But then Arise came in, so if he was okay, then start him. So, I mean, those are the only things I really noticed. And like you said, Gonzalez, I think, is just going to be a guy that'll play some first, some third, some left, some right. And I think they'll try to get him in there quite a bit. I love the lineup, though. I love how they have the ability to mash lefties. Hopefully in their season that'll happen more than it did tonight.
If you put in Buxton and Arise for Gonzalez and Adrianza, do you have Buxton batting as high as 7th? Do you have Arise batting 7th in front of Kepler? Do you have Kepler move up in the order? What do you think the bottom of that lineup looks like then?
Probably Arise if he starts, I guess. I too was a little surprised he was not in the lineup, although I think it must be, maybe a little dinged and just probably trying to minimize his exposure and, minimize the chances of him having any kind of setback here. I personally would love to see Arise bat leadoff against both lefties and righties. I think he's a perfect leadoff hitter, a guy who can take great at bats and get on base against either side. But he had a great at bat there at the end of the game. Worked the count full and slashed a nice little hit the other way. So he sure looks ready to go.
What do we think about bopping around guys left versus righty? Like Garver's going to bat leadoff versus looks like batting leadoff versus lefties, and probably down to where Kepler was, or versus right-handers. Josh Donaldson, I presume, batting second versus lefties. I don't think he's batting second versus righties. He's probably moving down to cleanup.
That's what they said of this spring.
Okay, good.
Or that's what came out this spring. I don't know if it was supposed to or not, but he'd hit lefties batting second. He'd bat cleanup against righties. Polanco is kind of, I think, an important part of this because he's a switch hitter.
Right.
You don't want to put a situation where you've got 3 lefties in a row or even 4 righties in a row. And if you can break that up with Polanco, I think that's a good thing. And you're right. I mean, we've all done it. We've all tried to put together our lineup of what we would. And I mean, Polanco's batting 8th, or Garver's batting 8th, and hit 31 homers last year. We all want Rosario to bat 8th or 9th, and he hit 32 home runs last year. I mean, It's hard to go wrong, but I agree. I think they need to mix it up from game to game. But I'm also good if, like Nick said, if they decide Arise is your leadoff hitter. I mean, he doesn't walk a ton, but he hits 320.
Right.
With that.
All right. I guess I don't have a lot of other topics. The Twins' next game is Friday. Their opener versus the White Sox. That should be a real test. The Twins pitching and Barrios are going to have to get through the White Sox lineup, which now looks like it could be. It looks like it's easily the second best in the AL Central, and possibly, I don't know if it's going to necessarily rival the Twins, but it's an awfully good lineup. Certainly should be in the top half of Major League Baseball, and maybe a top 10 offense in Major League Baseball. And then, meanwhile, the Twins are going to face Lucas Giolito, who they hit 163 against last year. But they still managed to go 2-2 versus them. So, thanks, Seth. Thanks, Nick, for joining the post-game pint.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who joined and kept us updated here in the chat. Thanks, Austin. You have a good night as well.
All right. We will see if we can do these some more during the season. Maybe probably starting again as early as after the home opener. We hope you can join us. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.